If you're ever hoping to keep yourself awake late at night, just think about the fact that not all serial killers get caught. In fact, some of the most terrifying serial killers of all time remain unidentified. Join us today as we talk about these horrifying serial killers who were never caught. American culture has a particular fascination with serial killers to the point where they have been elevated to the level of myth. Terrifying monsters that keep us up at night, but ones we seemingly can't stop learning about. While reading about the atrocities committed by serial killers like John Wayne Gacy or Ted Bundy is terrifying, it's just as fascinating to speculate about the ones who have never been caught. The thought that many of these serial killers are still out there, walking among us, is particularly terrifying. We crave answers to our questions, but unfortunately we'll probably never know the true identities of most of these murderers. While there are numerous serial killers who have successfully evaded capture, the stories behind the following murderers are perhaps the greatest examples of the ones who got away. Before we continue, a brief request from us. If you find value in this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss our valuable content on psychology in the future. Now off to the list of serial killers that were never caught. Number 1. The Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer captivated the nation in the late 1960s and early 1970s due to the brutality of his crimes, as well as the way he played with authorities and the media. He sent letters and cryptograms to the press, daring the public to solve his puzzles and capture him. A history professor and his wife deciphered only one of the encrypted messages. Chillingly, it was revealed that the Zodiac Killer killed in order to collect slaves for his afterlife. 37 murders were claimed by the Zodiac Killer. However, only 7 confirmed attacks have been identified by investigators: a cab driver and 3 different sets of male-to-female couples. 2 men survived the 7 attacks, bringing the Zodiac Killer's official body count to 5. Number 2. The Redhead Murderer, aka the Bible Belt Strangler. The Redhead Murderers were a series of murders committed along the Bible Belt in the United States in the 1980s. All of the victims, many of whom were never identified, had red or reddish hair. Many of their bodies were discovered on major highways in the United States, leading investigators to believe that the victims were hitchhiking or doing sex work. Elizabeth Lamott, the last known victim, was discovered in 1985 in Greenville, Tennessee, with evidence of a stab wound and severe blunt force trauma. Of the presumed victims, only 4 have been identified. Police interviewed 2 suspects in connection with the murders, but the true identity of the killer was never discovered. Number 3. The Alphabet Murderer. 3 young girls were raped and strangled in Rochester, New York in the early 1970s. Aside from the manner of their deaths, the girls shared one trait: their names were alliterative. The bodies of the girls were discovered in towns that began with the same letter as their names. Wanda Walkowitz was dumped in Webster, while Carmen Colan was dumped in Churchville. While there have been numerous suspects, despite all efforts, no suspect has ever been apprehended in connection with the Alphabet murders. Number 4. Highway of Tears Killers. A shocking number of young women have vanished or have been murdered along a lonely stretch of road in British Columbia. The cases date back to 1969, and the sheer number of victims, combined with the length of time involved, has led investigators to believe that the Highway of Tears murders was committed by multiple individuals. Although some, if not many, of these women were likely murdered by different people, it is believed that a large number of the murders can be linked to a single killer. The Royal Canadian Police suspect American killer Bobby Jack Fowler of killing anywhere from 10 to 20 of the victims. Cody Lejbakoff, a Canadian serial killer, was convicted of being one of the Highway of Tears murderers. Despite this progress, the police do not believe that they will ever solve all 40 plus of the murders that have occurred along the stretch of highway. Number 5. The Long Island Killer. The Long Island Killer is one of the most recent American serial killers to go unidentified. Having operated in the Long Island region for at least 20 years, from 1996 to possibly the present, and with anywhere from 10 to 17 murders attributed to the unknown suspect. Authorities know very little about the suspect, but they believe he is a white male in his mid-20s to 40s with extensive knowledge of law enforcement operations and techniques. This would explain how he has successfully avoided capture all these years. Number 6. Charlie Chopoff. Charlie Chopoff was a serial killer who operated in Manhattan from 1972 to 1974, killing 4 children and attempting to kill a 5th. The killer was given their nickname due to their practice of genital mutilation on male victims. Erno Soto, the main suspect, was apprehended by police in May 1974 after attempting to kidnap a young boy. Soto, an in-and-out mental patient at Manhattan State Hospital, confessed to the 1973 murder of 8-year-old Stephen Cropper. Soto, on the other hand, was never conclusively linked to the murders and was deemed unfit to stand trial, although the murders did stop after his arrest. Number 7. The Cleveland Torso Murderer. The Cleveland Torso Murderer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, was a serial killer who terrorized Cleveland, Ohio between 1935 and 1938 during the Great Depression. The killer beheaded and dismembered several male and female victims before dumping their bodies in Cleveland's impoverished Kingsbury Run neighborhood. The official body count for the Cleveland Torso Murderer is 12, but some researchers believe that the total body count could be as high as 20. Although there were several suspects, the Cleveland Torso Murderer case remains unsolved to this day. Number 8. The Doodler. The Doodler earned his moniker from his habit of sketching his male victims before having sex with them and stabbing them to death. From January 1974 to September 1975, the killer targeted the San Francisco area's gay community, killing between 6 and 14 people and injuring a number of others who survived. Because of the sensitivity of identifying as gay at the time, the surviving victims were hesitant to speak to police for fear of being outed, and as a result, authorities had very little information to go on. The primary suspect, an unidentified young man, was never officially charged because none of the men would testify in court. Lastly, number 9, Jack the Ripper. He's the most iconic serial killer for a reason, which is primarily because he was never caught. Jack the Ripper is often credited with jump-starting Western culture's serial killer fixation, and it's easy to see why. The Ripper murdered at least 5 women in London's impoverished Whitechapel district in 1888. The media frenzy surrounding the case contributed greatly to public obsession. It was ignited by a series of letters purportedly sent to police by the killer, including the infamous From Hell letter that inspired related modern fiction of the same name. There are now well over 100 theories about the identity of Jack the Ripper, demonstrating that this unresolved case continues to have a collective hold over our murder-obsessed culture. This concludes our video on serial killers that were never caught. Be reminded that this video is primarily for information only. Additionally, if you have the time, please leave a like, subscribe, and click that bell button to receive information on our new videos. If you want to watch more of our content, check out this video in the lower right corner. You can also check out our playlist of related content. Anyway, see you later and thank you for watching.